Hi, thanks for clicking on my video. This is my tournament run from the Chef Husky cook-off from the 10th, their January cook-off. I messed up recording the audio for this one, so I'm just going to do a replacement track, essentially. I wasn't talking much during the tournament anyway, so you're not missing much. Plus, as you saw from the deck picture, I'm playing Budew Froslass, so the battles are pretty slow anyways. So I figured I might as well just speed them up and do post-commentary anyways. I did end up going 6-1 during this tournament. Honestly, a lot of that had to do with hitting a lot of good matchups. A couple matchups were a little scuffed here and there, as you'll see. I did lose one, obviously, but that's alright. The point of this tournament, for those who didn't know, people were very much encouraged to not bring meta decks. I initially brought this because Chef Husky was doing a thing called bounties. One of the bounties was to place highly with a deck that wasn't in the top 30 Limitless. When I initially picked this deck, it wasn't in the top 30. I believe it was like 32, 33, something like that. But the day of tournament, I went to go double check, and it ended up being exactly at number 30. But I'm stubborn and I decided to play the deck anyways, so I didn't end up claiming any bounties, but I still had a lot of fun with the tournament. This first match, I was expecting it to be just straight Team PAL. These were open deck list tournaments, but I didn't want to look at my opponent's deck list unless I absolutely had to, because I wanted to be surprised by every round. I wasn't expecting a Froakie, I was expecting a straight Team PAL. So when I saw that Froakie go down, I got pretty scared, so since Greninja doesn't have an ability, I kind of have to go chase this immediately because it can hit my bench. I could have put Shaymin down, but it would have wasted me a bench space, and I didn't need to do it yet. With this deck, you don't really want to play cards unless you absolutely need to. You always kind of want to do the bare minimum so that you can save your resources for later in the fights. And because they won't have access to rare candy here, they have to evolve twice through. I got pretty lucky with that counter catcher play. And then they put down the Grand Chi, which I was not expecting, so they immediately got their Greninja out. So I probably should have grabbed Shaymin, but they don't have any energy attached to the Greninja currently, so they have no way of sniping anything. And Fez should be stuck for a turn, and it was. I do want to apologize to any opponent I did end up fighting with this deck. I understand it's very annoying to deal with, but I still enjoyed myself, and I hope all my opponents at least somewhat enjoyed their fights. Budew Froslass is a fun deck to kind of get around, in my opinion. Maybe not so much to fight against, but like when you do win, it feels really good. But also playing it's funny. I wouldn't say playing it is necessarily fun. It's more funny. It's a mixture of both a lot of luck and a lot of skill. I'm not very skillful, and I definitely got pretty lucky during this tournament. So I'd say most of my matchups are very much luck dependent. I drew very good a lot of the time, so ended up a lot of these fights ended up going in my favor. I probably won't have this much to say during most of the other fights, just anything interesting I noticed or anything interesting that's going on. A lot of these fights do kind of just come down. A lot of my matchups came down to like Devo plays. Luckily, not a lot of people were playing Miss Energy in this tournament. You could run like this list doesn't have it, but you could run like an Enhanced Hammer if you're worried that much about Miss Energy. I also wanted to give this deck another chance before rotation. It does lose a couple of its good cards like Counter Catcher and Devolution, so that it kind of becomes unplayable after this, if you ask me. So kind of just giving this deck one less hurrah. And yeah, again, I had a ton of fun during this tournament. He ends up getting a Pidgey here. And if Grand Chi managed to stick, I was talking to the opponent after this game. He said he should have bumped his Grand Tree. He wasn't expecting a Devo play, so he bumped his Grand Tree. But I'm talking to him after the tournament. He very much said he should not have gotten rid of that because it kind of ended up screwing him over. Funnily enough, no one was able to flip heads on this thing, so it was just kind of there for nothing. I would always go for it to maybe try to get a third, fourth. There's 4 Munkidoris there, 3. So I was trying to get a 4th Munkidori down, just for that extra bit of insurance. Ended up not needing it. This match went very, very well for me. Just setting up now for a knockout, because they more than likely have one next turn. So I want to keep them away from rare candies here, so I go into Budew. set up for a counter catcher play next turn, and that should just, I believe that just seals the deal on this one pretty much. Another tails flip for the Megazoa. Megazoa? Megoza? I don't have the card in front of me, so I can't exactly read it. I'm just kind of watching the footage back right now. It's kind of fun to do. Next time I'll make sure my audio is actually set up properly so you can get live audio. I just accidentally had my music way too loud, and I didn't separately record my audio, so I had no way of like turning down the music separately or whatever, because I'm dumb, but that's okay. In here, I'm just pretty much guaranteeing myself game here. There's not much they can do going into their turn. I always want to chase that Froakie because it's honestly the biggest threat. Anything that can hit my board, anything that can hit my bench is a big threat. And if you do end up playing this deck yourself, I'll have the list in the description, by the way. If you do end up playing this deck yourself, you pretty much always chase anything that can just snipe your board. I can put down the Shaymin, but that's an extra bench space, and it's also a Froslass. It also gets Froslass ticks, so it can be kind of tricky. So you kind of don't want to put Shaymin down unless you absolutely have to. And this final Munkidori damage will just clean up the rest of the game. Give my opponent with the sassy thumbs up. I really wish they would change his animations. I really do dislike them. Alright, on to game number 2. Bit of a visual bug there, but it's alright. All my opponents are really cool during this tournament. Most of them played their matches through all the way, so I do appreciate that. There is always an out to beat Budew Froslass, so it's just about playing correctly. Again, in this tournament, people were encouraged to play off meta decks, and there was a bounty for winning the entire tournament with a mill deck. So a lot of people were playing Wugtrio Mill. This actually is kind of a tricky matchup for me. If they manage to get all 4 ignitions and all 4 heads, I believe I just deck out and lose. So this, you really don't want to use, especially in this matchup, you want to use as little resources as possible and keep as much in the deck as possible, because they can just like mill you out if they just get really lucky with their draws. Luckily, my opponent wasn't able to set up a second Wugtrio. Another thing about this matchup, you don't want to take kills. You don't want to take KOs because it activates their reversals and gives them a lot more draw. So you want to be able to knock everything out. You don't want to knock anything out, essentially. Sometimes that's not possible depending on their board state. They don't super heavily rely on items. I'm mostly just using the Froslass, Budew here, to take a little bit of extra damage on there. That area play is really funny. You got rid of both my Super Rod and my Unfair Stamp. Not that the Unfair Stamp matters in this matchup. They don't take KOs. Super Rod is kind of a big hit, though. I did get really lucky when I top decked in their Froslass, what I was talking about earlier. A lot of my drawing in this match was just, in the tournament in general, was just so good. I ended up getting 9th, if I'm not mistaken. My only goal going into this tournament was to get an even record. And he ended up getting 3 heads there, which milled a good chunk of my deck. But he still hasn't managed to get another small Wugtrio down. So if he doesn't manage, if he doesn't manage to do it this turn, the game's just over here. And he didn't manage. He got really unlucky. He wasn't able to find his ignition energies. So that puts game 2 to me. Alright. Round number 3. I also got pretty lucky with the coin flips during most of this tournament. I almost got super unlucky. If I started Bear in this matchup, I would have probably lost a lot sooner. Well, spoilers, I did lose this one. This is the one match I lost. I had no idea what my opponent was playing. So I didn't really want to give them the Artazon here. I was debating it, but I didn't know what they were playing, so I could have checked their deck list. Again, I wanted to be surprised for most of this. I feel like Budew Process is especially strong in this tournament, because it was like a half mix of people playing meta and a half mix of people playing very non-meta stuff. The only matchups I really didn't want to see this tournament was Dragapult and Gardevoir. I didn't actually check the standings after this, but I don't remember how many people were playing Gardevoir, but there was a good chunk of Dragapult there. I ended up hitting 2 of those during the tournament, as you'll see later. He's attaching Latias here. He did attach 2 energies. Latias can only use... Latias' attack is Psychic, Colorless, so I'm not sure why they wanted to attach both energies there to Latias. Maybe they thought Mist Energy would protect them from... I think that's Mist. I do believe so anyways. Maybe they thought it'd protect them from Itchy Pollen or something, but sadly it doesn't. It'd be nice if it did. It does not. And if they don't get a Pokemon down here soon, they're in big trouble. They do find a Fez, which is cool. Still no clue what they're playing again, and they didn't want to look. They do pick up the Latias, which is really smart of them actually. And they start to attach to Fez because they can use Cruel Arrow to snipe my bench. I do find the Devo not useful during this matchup. I do find the Shaymin here. I believe I was debating putting it down because they were still a turn away from... Yeah, because they're still a turn away from attaching. I still have a turn to not bench it, essentially. This matchup was definitely the toughest of all of them. And it just goes to show that even with a terrible start like this, you can still very much come back against this deck. You just have to kind of know what you're doing. There's one more attach from Fez, and my guy is gone, so I'm just gonna... I want to protect my bench over anything else, and I want to keep up the item lock as much as possible. Now Fez is getting quite a bit of damage on there, so they do have to bench something here. Otherwise, they just lose. I believe they have one more turn essentially, so they do have to bench something after this turn. Otherwise, they're just going to lose. I wish I had a room for another Munkidori because I would have won this match a lot sooner. And there's a big mistake I make later. I'll bring that up when I see it. There's a huge mistake I make later, essentially. Well, we'll talk about that when we get to it. So yeah, they had to bench something. They do find a Munkidori, which is really annoying. I was really worried they would have the energy for it, and they also found their Lively Stadium, which also really sucks. One of the mistakes I made during this match was getting rid of my Artazons too early. There's a couple points I could have won the game if I just bumped their Lively Stadium, but that ended up not happening. And here's where things kind of slowly snowball downhill for me, like really very, very quickly. I do make the choice to get rid of both of my Devos there. Again, still don't know what my opponent's playing, but like I haven't seen a single evolution Pokemon yet, and all they have on board is basics with abilities. So I figured that should be fine. Goals to Iono them next turn low. I hope they don't find anything. I could have Iono'd that turn, but they might have gotten closer to Dark Energy, and I already know they have no way of grabbing Dark Energy in their hand unless they top deck it. So Iono next turn just seems a lot better. And they're going to Iono me. So they kind of had the same idea. They do manage to find a Dark Energy there, which is very annoying for me. I only have two, the only way I consistently beat Munkidori here is if I set up a third Munkidori. Debating what to do here. Unfair Stamp seemed like the best play there. One change I would say if I was to play this again, I probably wouldn't play anytime soon to like a tournament or anything. But one change I would make, probably just swap out the Unfair Stamp for a Secret Box. Honestly, it does come in handy. Unfair Stamp does come in handy sometimes. But honestly, being able just to find your pieces when you need them is a bit more important. We do play a heavy kind of Arven, so finding the secret box is normally not that much of a problem. I do go for a clutch of the Latias here, which means they do have access to other items now. But in my mind, their boards essentially have a good 5 prizes there with Munkidori, Latias, and Fez. So if I can just manage to knock out one other thing. Here's where I find out they're playing Absol Box. So in my mind, my out to victory now is essentially Ursaluna. There's a lot of games, honestly, I do forget I played the thing. But it's matchups like this where you do want the Ursaluna quite a bit. And that's kind of where I make my mistake. We'll see. I believe I draw into it at some point, and I do something incorrect with it. That loses me the game, in my opinion. And I want to keep this Latias here as long as possible. I want to also try to get rid of their Munkidori, so I do manage to do that once. But they do play a decent amount of recovery, so they should be able just to get it back. But I just want to out Munkidori them. That's kind of my goal here at this point. I maybe should have honestly counter-captured up the Absol. Just putting a little bit of extra damage on there would have actually not been too bad. We get so close to winning this one. Again, this is the only match I ended up losing. I feel like I definitely could have played it a bit better. But in the end, it's alright. I'm not too butthurt about it. We live and learn. The Turbo Energized play here was very clutch. This is why I kind of wanted to go get the Absol, because I would have had to attach, and I would have maybe had a much better time. Here's where I kind of make a mistake. So I know their Absol is completely charged up, and I don't want to lose the Ursaluna. So what I do is I shuffle. I think about it for a second here. I pause and I go, well, I don't want to lose my Ursaluna, because if they manage to find a way, because if they discard it, it's gonna be hard for me to get it back. So I say, okay, I'll just put it at the bottom of my deck. But that was kind of a mistake, because now I need to go find it again for game. Essentially, if I just had left it in my hand, and then Iono next turn, I still would have gotten into my Arven and still been able to grab it back. Or they might have not even gone for Ursaluna, and I would have had game right here essentially. But that ended up not being the case. Or no, I wouldn't have had game here, but it would have been way easier to get to game essentially. If I had not Iono'd them. If I just waited one more turn, I think I would have been fine. I think I would have been able to get into my Ursaluna and just knock out the Absol with the Munkidori damage. But this is ultimately what cost me the game. So it's just kind of all downhill from here. Because now they're able to discard my only way to get to Ursaluna. They just have complete control over my hand here. There's nothing I can really do. That's what kind of makes Absol a little bit annoying. I might make a video on Absol Box soon, or a deck that maybe plays Absol. I haven't decided exactly what deck I want to do that with. I think it's a pretty interesting card. I used to play, back when I started, I played Luxray EX, which does something really similar, but honestly Absol is probably way better. A lot easier to set up. You can insert a lot more tech cards. Its attack, I think, is actually a little bit more powerful. You also have access to Terminal Period and Munkidoris and things like that, so the deck just ends up being way better than Luxray EX. Yeah, and here they get rid of an energy, so even if I somehow top deck into Ursaluna here, which I don't believe I could because I have no way of shuffling my deck, so it's at the bottom currently. Even if I had a way of getting into Ursaluna there, it's not happening. And this is where I lose the game completely. Like, I have no... Like, my only out is to hope that they didn't just top deck into something they needed, essentially. And also, they also essentially, I need them to flip flip tails, and top deck into nothing. And of course they find their Pokégear. I believe this finds them a Lillie's. Yeah, it finds them a Lillie's. They draw 6 fresh cards. I'm gonna put down that Psyduck just so so their hand was completely dead, which is the sad part. They just top deck in the card they exactly need. Funnily enough, they do find their own Ursaluna, and that would be game for my opponent because all they need to do is retreat. I'm of 2 minds. I wish things like Confusion would do more, like maybe stop your opponent from retreating, maybe just automatically going away after the following turn. But it's all right. I would be annoyed if I was on the other end if that's how Confusion worked. So you know. What's this? What is this? Game 4, I believe. Yeah, game 4. This is a win. Oh, this is the game when I fought for the win. I love that guy's content. He's awesome. If you guys haven't checked out his channels, For the Win TCG or something like that, if you look that up on YouTube, you should be able to find it. He makes a lot of funny content in the Pokemon trading card game. This is another Wugtrio match. So as I was mentioning earlier, the way to win this is Budew Froslass. You actually don't want to take KOs as much as possible. He does find a Teen Evo here, but that would require him to get rid of either one of his reversals or one of his ignitions, and those you can't recover those in current standard format. So it's kind of a tough choice. I'm assuming he didn't go for it here because he probably just had both his Wugtrios in hand or a way to get to them, presumably. So honestly, he just needs one Wugtrio to get started. The Clefairy actually was a little bit annoying because there'd be turns where I can't go for Ichipollen, otherwise I'd risk knocking it out. Because Wugtrio never takes knockouts, so it's always going to be at 6 prizes, which means their reversals and counter catchers will always be active the second I take a knockout. Luckily, things like Cleffa and their Wugtrio, things like Cleffa don't have an ability, so I'm fine to set up a Froslass during this game. That's kind of my only way to win. I can get 2 Ichipollens off on this before having to just essentially pass every turn. They do get a Wugtrio here and an Ignition, so they can start doing their milling. And this is pretty scary. Again, if they just get, like, I think if all 4 of their Ignitions are in their deck and they get all 3 heads every time, I'm pretty sure I just deck out completely. I'm looking for, yeah, I needed Froslass here because I needed to start putting on some pressure. And I'm just going to guarantee myself a second Munkidori here. Because I have the Arven in hand, I know next turn I can guarantee myself a Dark Energy. You don't really ever want to put down the second Munkidori unless you can guarantee yourself energy next turn. Or if you have the attach already, of course. Here's where I find out they're playing Dracloak as a draw engine, which actually kind of ends up being it's really good in my favor, essentially, because it just gives me another thing to target for prizes. I have to be really careful that they also don't mill my Team Devolution, because it's also my only other way of winning. They milled the first one. Luckily, the second one was in deck. It wasn't prized. If it was, this battle would have been a lot harder, almost impossible, actually. So I want to keep this Devolution in my hand and hope they don't Iono it and then mill it. So I just want to keep it in my hand until I absolutely need it. And as I mentioned, you don't want to take knockouts. You just want to spread damage around, and then once all their Wugtrios are essentially in Devo range, you just Devo and win that way. He's managing to continually find his Ignition energies, or his reversals and stuff. Luckily, he can't find his Ignitions. Unfair Stamp's literally useless during this matchup. That's kind of also why I want to play Secret Box, because there's actually a few matchups in the game where Unfair Stamp really doesn't do much. Guardy, Golden Go, Dragapult, they all have such good draw that Unfair Stamp kind of doesn't do anything to them. So Secret Box probably is honestly the correct A-spec for this deck, if you are interested in playing it at all. Battle Cage here was very, very annoying. If that was a Secret Box in my hand, I would have Battle Cage. Luckily, I did top deck into the Artazon. So that was very, very, very handy. If they had another Battle Cage, I also would have probably been pretty screwed. Getting his Wug set up. The funny thing with Wugtrios, you have to be really careful not to deck yourself out. The deck is very resource intensive, he got pretty unlucky with those flips there. But the deck is very resource intensive, so you have to be really careful with how you use your resources. Just trying to set up a Devo play as much as possible. He hasn't found an Iono. I'm not sure. I should look at his list afterwards. I'm not sure how many Iono he was running. I'm assuming at least a couple, but he doesn't seem to go for it that often. So I'm not sure if like he prizes Ionos or something. I think he's baiting me to knock out the Cleffa here. No, obviously I don't want to do that. I'll put some extra pressure on and then just pass here. So again, you don't want to knock anything out. That's just a mistake. I think it's a mistake a lot of Budew Froslass players make. Is they'll go, oh, I have a knockout here. Let me take a knockout. You actually you want to avoid it as much as possible, especially if their like bases are loaded and there's not much they can do. It's a pretty toxic deck to play against, if I'm being honest. But again, we were encouraged to play non-meta, and I'd say Budew Froslass is very non-meta. Very anti-meta. So I thought it was a perfect fit for this tournament. So here now I can start taking knockouts because I am going for a Devo play. And they have nothing on board. I was worried. Again, I didn't look at their deck list. I probably should have. It would have been funny if they were able to set up a Dragapult here. Like, this deck with Dragapult would be so funny, actually. And here they're in a very much tough spot. If they had a way of recovering their Wiglets, I think they might have had a chance of winning here. Especially if they were able to like pull off an Iono or something. But that ended up not happening. He's very much stuck here. I believe he was just thinning out to try to get rid of. Yeah, he'd have to get enough established here. But I believe, if I'm not mistaken, this is about where the game ends. The ticket made me think that something super important was prized. He does get a Maractus here. I mean, it's honestly his best bet here. Try and trap Froslass, but I think he realized with Munkidori damage I would have just won anyway, so he did the scoop. Again, sorry for the win. If you do end up watching this, sorry. Your content's great. Do appreciate the battle, and he was very nice about it afterwards too. So thanks again for that. Yeah, very fun. Alright, this should be battle number 5, I believe. I've been keeping very good track of that's alright. I do find the Yveltal, which is nice, gives me free retreat, gives me a nice pivot so I don't have to waste an energy if my Air Balloon is prized. I do only play one Air Balloon, probably could go up to like a second one, but as long as you're resource managing properly, one should be plenty for the entire game. Here's the first match where I fight a Dragapult. Very, very, very annoying deck to deal with as Budew Froslass. If they manage to set up a Dragapult, your deck is in very much big trouble. I do top deck the Budew, which is very nice. Luckily, Air Balloon's also not prized. I do go for a Froslass. You actually don't really want some matchups you want multiple Froslass. This is one where you could arguably not even use one Froslass, but they're also playing Charizard, so the Froslass ends up being useful for that thing because it has an ability. He is playing also the Charmander without an ability as well, so it's going to be a while before I can start properly stacking up, like, snowballing that damage. He does manage to find a Team Eagle play here, which is really good for him. He does get into a Dracloak, and I really need to find a Froslass here. Luckily, I do find one. I might want to go, if you do play this, you might want to also go with like another Ultra Ball count. Because sometimes finding those Frostlesses can be extra tough. You could also just maybe run a one more Frostless than I do. You could cut the Prism Energy. It is only there for Mind Bend. And we're playing a Prism over Psychic so that drawing into it, if just raw drawing into it is better, because you don't want to raw draw into Psychic and then have no way to find any other energy. But if you raw draw into Prism, it still acts as a dark energy, so that's why we're playing Prism over like one of Psychic energy, if you're curious. If you really want to, you could play a Psychic, because you can find it off Earthen Vessel, things like that. He doesn't end up finding the Charizard here, which is a little bit annoying. We do hit it for weakness with Budew, so he can set up for a really big Devo play. He doesn't manage to evolve his other Dracloak. He probably just wanted the extra draw. But it is set up to be a Dragapult. So I do want to set up my Munkidoris as soon as possible here. I know I'm going to lose Budew next turn. I have no way of getting another Budew. Luckily, this is where getting Yveltal early honestly was kind of nice too. Because not having to find it later is pretty good in this matchup. So we do want to be able to trap things. I was bringing up the Charmander just so I'm forcing them to essentially have another Charizard or a way to switch this out. I maybe should have gone into Yveltal here. If I was thinking more ahead, I maybe could have just won the following turn essentially. But they do end up finding the Air Balloon here. They do end up Ionoing me. I didn't mind too much. I needed a better hand anyways. They do find Dragapult here, which was really scary. I thought they were going to go into Dragapult. But they end up just going into the Charizard here. I think going to Dragapult made way more sense. You would have been able to knock out Budew, plus I think one more thing on the bench. Or at the very least put some damage on the Froslass, which is kind of a big problem. Because I don't remember if it's this match or next. Later, I believe it puts on Munkidori. I might be wrong. It might be later. It might be the match after this one. But once I've set up 3 Munkidoris here, and that was kind of their downfall. I got really lucky, and I also drew into the Devo, which is really nice. So I'm 100% just going after the Dragapult now at this point. I need one more turn of damage, but like they should be able to board wipe me completely at this point, which is also why I'm really confused why they didn't go Dragapult. If they had 2 turns of Dragapult, they would have 100% won this game. They are playing their own Unfair Stamp. I'm not sure why they wanted to go to Charizard here, but they did. But that's alright. We do manage to get rid of their Dracloak there, which is really nice. I can also preserve the Munkidori a lot easier by leaving it on the bench, because we're about to Devo them anyways. So I do finding that extra attach is actually really, really good. Figured I might as well Iono them down while I'm here. Make it hard for them to come back. We do draw an Ursaluna, which is cool. It means if they take one more prize, I just need to find an energy to attach to take a prize myself. They do end up putting a Watchtower down. This ends up being kind of important, a little, not super duper important, but kind of important later, as it almost causes me to misplay. But we'll get to that when we get to that. They do find their Unfair Stamp here, which is a little annoying. My hand essentially is dead at this point, but I do find my Counter Catcher, which ends up actually clutching it out quite well for me here. So I can trap their guy inactive. They had to waste their Luminous to attach Charizard. They probably should have resource managed a little bit better, and they probably would have had this match. And I get super lucky by finding my other Devo here, honestly. I'm not sure how many Luminous they were playing, but having to attach a Charizard there definitely hurt quite a bit. It's now their whole turn behind. I do still have 2 more prizes to take. They do end up finding Droopy. And I'm just waiting here. I'm just waiting for my opponent to kind of make a move. And they do end up getting back their Charmander, and they do find their Iono.
So here I'm thinking, oh, here's an energy. I can just go get game with Ursaluna. And I almost put it in the active. It's about here. When I bench it and I attach energy, I go, oh wait, Rocket's Watchtower is place. I actually don't have Ursaluna, so I have to go for one more item lock here. And that ends up being enough to just close out this game. Essentially, they have nothing they can really do next turn unless they have a way of picking up this Charmander. Opponent's taking a minute to think here. I don't quite recall. I think there's a Charmeleon that you can attach an energy to, and it should be able to knock out Budew. I don't even think that would have been enough in this case. Yeah, but this ends up winning the game anyway. So yeah, GG to my opponent there. This should be game number 6, I believe. Here, I can check actually real quick. Is this game number 6? This is. Ooh. This is game number 6. Okay. Yes, this is game number 6. My opponent is going to mulligan here, and it's, again, Charizard Dragapult. There was a lot of this section during the tournament. If I remember right, the winner of the tournament ended up being a Raging Bolt deck. It's not something I see too commonly nowadays, actually, so that was kind of cool to see. Second runner-up was Festival Lead, so they ended up getting the bounty with playing a non-meta deck and getting really high with it, essentially. This is a pretty good turn for me. They do have their Munkidori set up immediately. Both my Bravery Charms with Budews, I don't have to worry too much about them, just being like Munkidori food. So I'm pretty safe to just go for an Energy Pollen here. They do manage to find another Charmander here, and they do Regenerate Brain here. Again, I was drawing like crazy during this entire tournament. I managed to find quite a bit of things when I needed them. That was a big contributor to why I placed it well in this. By the end of the tournament, there was only 90 players, but I believe initially there was almost 200. So I will take it. That's pretty good in my books. So I'm going to be winning the Munkidori War here. I doubt they played more than one. Probably should have checked the list. Again, this was open deck list. I could have checked. I'm not a big fan of reading my opponent's deck in the middle of my match just to figure out what my best play is. It's not that serious. It wasn't that serious of a tournament, so I wasn't that worried about it. They do find an attached Charmander here, which means one more attach and they can't just start knocking out my Budews with Munkidori plays. So that was a little scary. So I wanted to make sure I could always have a Budew on standby. I do end up getting triple monkey here though, so it's a big threat to them. If they had one more Munkidori, they actually would have been in a much better spot. Munkidori is a super powerful card right now. What am I going for here? Munkidori is a super powerful card right now. I don't like it in the format, but you're kind of forced. You kind of end up, a lot of your decks end up being forced to play it. So I figured, why not just play a deck with 4 Munkidoris in it for this tournament? It can lead to super high skill games, but also leads to like non-games like this. Honestly, we're in a format right now with a lot of combination of just like super oppressive cards. It's a combination of Munkidori, Dusknoir, and like Budew that makes the game sometimes super unplayable, and that's kind of a shame. From time to time, so I kind of just treat this as like a showcase of that. That we could definitely do with counters to these cards in the format, if you ask me. That's just my opinion. My opponent did ask to scoop there in the chat, and I let him, of course. It's a tournament, why not just let him scoop? I don't want to force people to not have fun. I say as I play Budew Froslass. So this ended up being the last round of the tournament. And this is arguably Budew Froslass's best matchup. I did start really poorly here. Starting Shaymin here actually hurt quite a bit. But this ended up being Golden Go, Baneri, or not Baneri, what is it called? Lopunny. Golden Go Lopunny. So if they managed to set up a Lopunny during this game, I might have been in trouble. But they started with pretty much nothing. Luckily, I do have a way to retreat off my my Shaymin. You don't really want to use Air Balloon on something like Shaymin. So maybe, honestly, maybe I should have attached to the the Shaymin and just retreated and then just found energy off Arven or something. But it ended up not being that big of a deal, honestly. Yeah, again, they don't have much. So now my only goal is to hopefully keep them away from being able to play the game. I'm going to go for Pokégear here because my hand is completely dead. I only play one of them in this list. You could go up to like 2. There are occasions where you're just dead drawing, and if you don't draw into a supporter, you're just cooked. So Pokégear was really important. You actually don't want to play that Pokégear until you absolutely have to. So essentially, until my active Budew gets knocked out, there's no reason for me to play this Pokégear. So I'm just going to continue to itchy palm them until it's absolutely necessary to play. And it does get rid of the Baneri there, so they'll have a tough time getting it back unless they're playing Lana's. I don't recall if they were or not. Here's my opponent's. It's going to attach to Solrock. Luckily, they didn't find a Lunatone there. You might not even want. Honestly, you might not even want to punch with Lunatone or with Solrock, even if you did find his Lunatone there, because I could just Munkidori away all that damage. That's what's nice about the Bravery Charm. It leaves you just out of range of Solrock as long as they're not playing any damage modifiers. I also hit the Solrock for weakness, which is really nice. It makes it much easier to Munkidori KO later. They do find a Golden Go here, but that's just not too bad. Just like every other evolution deck, your goal pretty much isn't to knock out a Pokemon outright, it's to Devo them. It is just to Devo them. You could leave a Golden Go with some damage on it, to knock out with Ursaluna too. There's a bunch of different ways to approach this matchup. But the way my opponent's board is setting up, a Devo definitely just seems like the best play here. Or maybe even, maybe Ursaluna would be better here, actually, thinking more about it for 5 seconds. They weren't able to find anything, which is nice. I do get to preserve my Budew for another turn. The Chipollen doesn't do any damage, so I'm not that worried about it because we do have the Froslass set up. And then they are playing Lana. They maybe should have gotten back the Baneri. Maybe. Lopunnies are really good out because they can just set up a Spiky Hopper and just keep spamming that over and over again, and it's going to take me forever to properly knock it out, so I have to put my Devos and stuff. And that gives them a turn to use their items if I use Devo. But they ended up not recovering their Baneri here. They do set up another gimme goal, so I'm definitely now more committed to the Devo play than I was before. If they didn't set up the other gimme goal, I could have 100% just gone Ursaluna knockout, but they do end up setting up another one, so Devo is definitely the play. What's nice is that Lunatone will just take Froslass ticks, and it's very low HP compared to everything else on their boards. I don't ever need to even Munkidori to it. Again, like, just to reiterate one last time, with this deck, you actually don't really want to take knockouts until you're guaranteed to gain like 1 or 2 more turns. It just becomes what's the word? It's a lot harder for you to win if you take knockouts too early. They do find a Vitality Band off that Arven, but they had already attached an Air Balloon to their Solrock, so that's kind of a misplay on their part. They could have knocked out my Budew here, which would have put me in a much worse spot. This lets me get another Budew, and then the following turn they can just maybe knock it out. I do kind of show my hand here. I'm like, okay, well I have Unfair Stamp and I have Devo, so if you knock me out, you're gonna get Devolution and Unfair Stamped. So watch out for that. They do find the Cramorant. I wasn't expecting them to play Cramorant. I haven't seen that in. I don't think there's much point in playing it in Golden Go when you're already playing the Lopunny. To me, for those who don't know, I do play Golden Go a lot. It's like my main deck. I don't see too much of a point in it. Yeah, it's cool. It gives you like another attacker and a Budew and other things like Corner Pawn and things like that. It's not that useful, especially with Mega Lopunny in format right now. If we didn't have Mega Lopunny, there's definitely a much stronger case for it. They are going to go after my Munkidori here, which is fine. I can easily recover that guy. Not that worried about it. And I did already tell them, hey, I have Devo in my hand, you know, make sure you have a bigger turn than that. Benching Munkidori there was actually kind of a dangerous, not too dangerous, but like a little bit risky. If I didn't find an energy for it that turn, it would have been a bit more damage than I'd like it to be. But we're about to Devo them. We're about to essentially just ruin their whole board. They don't have much of a way to come back here. This also shuts off their Cramorant, which is also why I don't let Cramorant in here. Now it's just a wasted space on your board. You can't do anything with it. It's also going to knock out their Lunatone. And they pretty much have no way of winning at this point. They could find another Soul Rock and Punch with Vitality Man, and that would knock me out. I believe I honestly can't see the screen very well right now. Let's see, Munkidori's at 10, so 70, 80. No, that wouldn't even knock me out. So even that combo wouldn't do it. They'd need like a Premium Power Pro, which I don't think many Golden Lists are playing currently right now. I never really liked it in there, but that's neither here nor there. This isn't a Golden Go video; it's a Budew Froslass video. I still think my opponent played as best as they could here, though. There's a reason they were in the top cut essentially for this tournament. They were playing very well. It's just Budew Froslass just kind of cooks this deck every time, unless they get super unlucky. But yeah, this will be the end of it here. I thought my Munkidori was dead because I can't do math, but it wasn't. So it's like, oh, okay, that's just game. So yeah, I just go after the Fez now. It's been on the board long enough. All I have to do is pass and then I win. Yeah, and that was the tournament. Thank you guys so much for watching. I do appreciate anyone who leaves a like, comment, or follow, whatever YouTube stuff people normally do. I just do this for fun. I don't really have a schedule for this kind of thing, but my goal kind of is just a video a month. So if you stop by to watch, thanks so much for watching. See you around.